Welcome to Brainish English Stories.
The summer break had started, and I was going home alone from Paddington to Upperton. I was old enough to travel alone, as I was 14, but I had never done this trip alone before. There was only one change, and at Upperton, a pony cart would be waiting for me. It was all pretty easy, and I felt happy about being on my own as my cab stopped at Paddington. But then things got hard. There was a big, loud crowd leaving for holidays too. The cab driver asked for twice the usual fare. It took me 15 minutes to find a porter for my bags, and then I had to push through the crowd to get to the ticket office. Finally, when I got my ticket, the train was about to leave. "Get in any carriage," said the porter. "I'll make sure your bags get on." The carriages were packed. I ran down the platform until I found a spot. Then I opened the door and sat down quickly as the train left the station. I looked around for some kindness after almost missing the train, but the other passengers seemed unfriendly. They looked at me like I didn't belong and talked amongst themselves, so I just sat quietly in my seat and thought about my upcoming holiday. I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't even notice the stations we passed. I was imagining the fun I'd have riding the pony when suddenly the train stopped and someone shouted, "Everyone out." "Where are we?" I asked, feeling confused. "At Low Ford," answered one of the passengers. They all left the carriage without asking about where I was going. I found a porter and asked him what had happened. "You are going to Upperton," he said. "You must have gotten on the wrong train. It was crowded at Paddington, so it's understandable." "I didn't realize," I said. "What should I do now? How far is Upperton? Is there another train?" "Well, there's no more trains tonight. Upperton is about 15 miles away by the road." "Which way should I go?" "Just keep going straight ahead. You'll see telegraph poles along the way. When you reach the leather bottle, turn right. I know the way from there, but it's too far to walk tonight. You should stay at a hotel and continue your journey by train in the morning. I'll send a message home asking them to meet me on the road, and I'll walk until they do." "Well, it's up to you. They might meet you halfway, but it's a bit lonely on the road at this time of night." "I'm not scared," I said, and started walking quickly. I bought 2 sweet rolls at a bakery and then went to the telegraph office. But they said it was past 8 o'clock and they couldn't send any messages that night. I checked my pockets, but all I had were a 6-penny coin and a 3-penny piece. Not enough to pay for a place to stay for the night. The cab driver charging too much and giving the porter a half-crown in a hurry had left me with only that. What could I do? I quickly decided to keep walking. Maybe my family would figure out what happened and come to find me. The idea of adventure excited me. If I had gone back to the porter, he might have taken me to a hotel and they would trust me. But I didn't think of that. I guess I didn't want to. I've always been used to country roads, and it was a perfect evening in late July. I walked straight toward the setting sun. The sky was clear, with pale yellow, pink, and green colors as the sun disappeared behind the hills covered with beech trees, which stood between me and home. But behind me, the moon was rising, still looking like a tiny round white cloud. At first, I felt like dancing along the road. The feeling of freedom was amazing. I could smell wild honeysuckle and roses from the bushes. I ate my sweet rolls as I walked. In the first hour, I covered 3.5 miles according to the markers, and I enjoyed every step. I bet they'll be surprised when I show up, I thought. Walking 15 miles after 8 o'clock at night will be something to brag about for a long time. The sunlight had gone, but the moon was bright and clear. The shadows of me and the tall poles were as dark and sharp as they are in the middle of the day. Bats were flying up and down. A white owl silently flew across the road. Rabbits were playing in the fields in the silver light. It was all very beautiful, but a bit lonely and spooky. I hadn't passed a house for a mile. Then I heard wheels behind me. Maybe it was someone nice who would give me a ride. But I heard someone being mean to a horse and swearing loudly. I hurried on, but the cart caught up to me in no time. The man stopped the cart. He leaned over to look at me, and I saw his rough, red face and watery eyes. "Need a ride, dear?" he asked. "No, thank you," I said. "I'd rather walk." "It's too late for a girl like you to be out," he said. "Hop in and ride with me." "No, thank you," I said again, walking as fast as I could. He urged his horse to go faster to keep up with me. Then, leaning on the front of the cart, he acted like he was going to climb out. But at that moment, a big bird flew out of the hedge. The horse jumped to the side, sending his owner tumbling into the bottom of the cart, and then they sped off at a gallop. I was very relieved to see them disappear into the distance. I was trembling with fear, so I had to sit down on a pile of stones for a while. After gathering my courage, I continued walking, but the fun of the adventure was gone. It seemed like there was too much excitement. I walked 3 miles, then 4 more, but it wasn't as enjoyable as the first part of the journey. It was 11 o'clock, and I was only halfway there. At this rate, I wouldn't be home before 2 in the morning. If my family had been coming to meet me, they would have done so already. They must have assumed I wouldn't be coming home until morning. Waking them up in the middle of the night would scare them more than not coming home at all. Also, there was a long road ahead, going over hills and through woods. The idea of walking through moonlit, quiet woods with their strange shadows scared me. I looked around for a safe place to spend the night. Luckily, I found one. There was a big pile of hay in a field near the road that had been cut. About halfway up, there was a wide ledge, perfect for sleeping. It didn't take me long to climb up there. I pulled some loose hay over myself in case it got cold in the morning. Then, I said my prayers. They were really heartfelt that night, and soon fell asleep in my soft, sweet-smelling bed. I woke up when the sun was shining hot on my nest. I checked my watch. It was 6 o'clock. Thrushes and blackbirds were singing loudly, swallows were flying around, and up high in the sky, A lark was hovering above me, singing its morning song. I knelt there on the hay pile and sent my thanks up to the sky along with the lark song. I had never felt so grateful as I did that sunny morning. The dangers of the night were behind me, and a beautiful new day lay ahead, with only 7.5 miles left to reach home. Though I was very hungry, I continued on my way. Soon, I came across a cottage where the woman was up making breakfast for her husband. She kindly offered me as much bread and butter as I wanted, along with a cup of tea. I didn't mind that the bread was thick or the butter wasn't top-notch, or even that the tea had no milk. I was just grateful for the food. When the woman heard my story, she felt sorry for me and wished I had come to her house earlier to sleep. But I didn't regret spending the night on the road. I wouldn't have traded that experience for anything. I gave her a 6pence as a thank you. I kept the threepenny bit for myself, having learned to be wise with my money, and continued on my journey. The air felt fresh and invigorating, typical of early morning. Sunlight peeked through the trees, casting playful shadows. I spotted patches of purple heath, lilac scabious, and pale harebells along the way. Some ferns were starting to turn yellow, a sign that autumn was on its way. In a small corner, I found a delightful patch of wild strawberries. My heart felt light, and I wondered if other travelers ever felt as joyful as I did on summer mornings after sleeping outdoors. I got home around 9 o'clock, and there was a lot of excitement. Everyone was calling out, "Here's Muriel." "Where did you come from, Muriel? What happened last night? We were so worried." They said there was a big crowd at Paddington, and they thought I missed the train. They assumed I'd go back to Miss Black's place. They said I should have sent a message. It took a long time to convince them that I spent the night outside and slept in a hayrick. Mom was almost mad at me, and Dad said if I ever got stuck like that again, I should go to a good hotel and ask for help. He promised to make sure none of his kids ever got stuck like that again. But I couldn't be sorry. The beginning and the end were so nice.